am I pursuing to multiply? It's this message of God's incredible love for his enemies, for sinners, that is the most extraordinary thing that we should be multiplying, passionately pursuing to multiply. So they're at work at this. 80% of Christian workers work among nominally Christian populations in the world. This little guy here, 17.5% of all Christian workers are among that group of people who have the opportunity to hear. Many of them really haven't heard much, but there at least is the remote chance that they could hear. And this dude represents the labor force that we're assigning to reach 1.8 billion people that just have never had the opportunity to hear. 2.5% of all Christian workers labor among the totally unreached peoples. And, human resources and financial resources are pretty closely linked. But I want us to look at these numbers. Globally, Christians make around $15.5 trillion each year. And of that, $280 billion is given to Christian causes. $280 billion, that's a lot of money. But the thing is, it's only 1.8%. It's around 2% of all of the resources that God has made us a steward of that are given towards Christian work of any kind. Now, what was kind of the guideline that Jesus gave? Or not Jesus, the Scriptures give us about stewardship and reflecting that God is our provider? Tithe 10%. And of course, it's not an obligation for us as a church today to give 10%. But I think it's a good starting point. We could go up from there. But down from there, probably not a good idea. So here's where we're at. You might have asked, why do I have a loaf of bread? It's not because I'm hungry quite yet, although I do want to conclude very quickly and let you get out to lunch. But if we thought about the $15.5 trillion, and that 2% of that is 280, now we're going to look at how, so those are the resources we have available that are given. Now we're going to look at how this gets split up. 95%, 96% of it is given to the local church. It stays here at home doing the valuable work that you guys do in your community. And only 4 to 5% is given to any sort of missions or evangelism. This represents that 4 to 5%. We'd have to think about it, that $280 billion is like, if I had 50 loaves of bread up here, which is all that's given to do extend the work of the gospel with the local church and missions, the whole package, it would be 50 loaves of bread. So that would be about a pile of these, I suppose, roughly the size of the pulpit. And this is the one of all those 50 that represents the resources given to missions and evangelism. And yet, that's not where the story ends. If we looked at what's done with missions and evangelism, remember I said 80% of Christian workers are among nominally Christian places? So, this is the missions and evangelism, but 95% of this goes to missions and evangelism among Christian peoples. That, third of the world population. This is what's left to reach the other 2/3 of the world. Remember, we started with 50 loaves that were given to Christian work. This is what we have left when we get down to the missions and evangelism resources. And then, if we think about those least reached people, the people that can hear, but they really haven't heard a whole lot, and the people that have never heard, of all missions and evangelism, what goes to reaching those least reached areas is this: 1/5 of a loaf of bread, 1/5 of a piece of a whole loaf. And what goes to reach 2 billion people, roughly? This. 1/3 of that. So this little piece of bread, out of 50 loaves of bread, is what the church is giving financially to fund laborers who are among 2 billion people who've never heard. Now, I do want to say these are they're rough numbers, but they're a pretty good estimate. Like, it's not this whole part here that's going to reach it might maybe half or something, but this is really a very accurate estimate. I can get you the sources for this so that you can look at it and grapple with it. But this being of 50 loaves of bread, all of the resource given to sustain the work of the gospel among 1.8 billion people. When we look at Jesus who is teaching, you will bear much fruit. When we look at, you've been given 5, you multiplied it. Good. You've been given 2, you multiplied it. Well done, good and faithful servant. With a little, you've been faithful, you'll be given more. And then we look at that servant who didn't multiply it. And how, it's grievous. This is grievous. This is what the church globally, and not you guys, but we're just looking at the church globally. But the whole point isn't about money or that. The point is, how does this reflect the understanding of the Father's heart? See, that was the problem with the third servant who didn't multiply. He said, you're a tough guy, you reap where you don't sow, I'll just kind of sit on it. Where are we at? Where are you at with the Father's heart that's compassionate towards every person on the face of this planet, whose Son was sent for them? That's how this should make you feel. I don't want you coming out of here thinking about how's money being distributed and this and that. It really comes down, if our hearts were right, this would change, and we'd have more resources given to reach 2 billion people. And the world would be a different place as the light of the gospel transformed hearts and minds. And so it's really about, where's our heart? Are we really abiding in a way that produces that fruitfulness that we see in John 15? Are we going to hear, well done and good and faithful servant? The other side of it's just pretty nasty. So, this just reflects a heart problem. It's not about having a better strategy to divide up missions giving or those kind of strategies. It's about, where's our heart for the Father's business? Where's our passion for fruitfulness that brings Him glory? And so I've gone way over, I know. But we appreciate the opportunity to be here. The takeaways are this. The Father is the vine dresser. He's at work diligently in your life to bring about fruitfulness, and not just a little fruitfulness, but multiplication. Not just a little addition of what you've got going on, but